Hi, this is Paul Marks, co-host of Decoding Multifamily. And this episode of Decoding Multifamily is brought to you by one of our founding sponsors at the Multifamily Media Network, AppWork. Much more than just maintenance, AppWork is advanced business intelligence. Streamline maintenance workers' workflows and keep an eye on the leaderboard as your service teams enjoy the gamification of maintenance. Visit appworkco.com today and transform your productivity.
Welcome to Decoding Multifamily, a video podcast that explores different aspects of multifamily operations and takes a deep dive into the important topics that affect the apartment industry. Watch as co-hosts Suzanne Hopson and Paul Marks engage with multifamily thought leaders, rising multifamily superstars, and apartment industry icons. Decoding is defined as the process of extracting meaningful and useful information. So watch closely as we begin Decoding Multifamily.
Welcome to this episode of Decoding Multifamily. Decoding Multifamily is part of the Multifamily Media Network, which you should find out more about by going to multifamilymedianetwork.com, where there's a host of other podcasts that are featured there with some great podcasters who are all industry leaders and icons in the industry. So go to multifamilymedianetwork.com. But let's get into today's episode. I have with me my fantastic co-host, the great Suzanne Hopson. And Suzanne, I'm going to let you introduce our guest for today, which is Maria Pietroforte, who is a wonderful industry icon who I've had the pleasure of knowing for the last year and has been featured on my radio show, Multifamily Matters. So please introduce her.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome, Maria. Just such a pleasure to have you on the show. And yeah, let's get into who you are. So, so I know that you have been a fixer and an innovator, that you've specialized in leadership coaching and multifamily consulting and skill building workshops, and that people say you are tenacious, that your drive is tenacious, and that your energy is contagious, which I've already been able to benefit from in pre-show. And I know all of our guests will be able to experience that as well. I think there's some interesting things in your bio that I'm not going to divulge here quite yet because we want to decode you and really get into what has brought you to where you are today as an industry icon. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me is your conversation about taking on complex challenges, moving across the country multiple times, and really being able to excel at discerning strategic opportunities, interim executive roles, solving business problems, and really now just being able to consult and help others do the same. So as a C-level executive, you've also done a lot of turnarounds and startup scenarios. You've navigated various industries, from multifamily to nonprofits to technology platforms for private equity and also publicly traded organizations. And so, again, I don't want to give it all away. Why don't we get into decoding you with some questions? But welcome, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So let's start. Tell us a little bit about that journey. I know I've mentioned some of the destination points, but how did you get into multifamily? It's one of our favorite questions.
I wish I had a more interesting story, but very similar to a lot of people, it was accidental. It was pre-college. I had some time in between going to school thinking that I didn't need an education, which I was wrong. I did need an education. Not everybody does. And a friend of mine from high school, they were building a brand new apartment community in the town that I grew up in. And I wanted to be far away from, by the way, but I had a knack. I didn't know anything, but I was able to hire right, pick the right suppliers, lease the building up. It was just, it fit me. You were always doing something different, and I liked that. Now, I also did everything wrong. My mother tells me I was asked to leave that job because I threw a party. I don't remember that. Must have been a good party.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And I also used to lay out by the pool during lunch, kind of a no, but, I wasn't brought up in the industry. I fell in. So I really didn't have a role model yet. So
Mm.
that was my inception.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we hear this repeatedly, right, Paul, just about
Yeah.
people falling into the industry. And yeah, we have a theme going, I think.
I think so too. And I didn't plan to stay. There was no intentional planning, I'm going to be in property management. I'm going to be an executive. There was none of that. It was more out of, I needed a job, a place to live. Then I ran away and went to college and, you know, I needed to work again. So now I'm in Arizona. And because I had that little bit of property management experience, I used that to get jobs while I went to college. So, again, out there on my own, I'm an independent contractor. I would have told you that I did not have the gift of gab, but I did in a sense. Everybody else would say, oh, yeah, Maria, you're a talker. But I met a gentleman on a plane, happened to have apartment communities, met another person that had apartment communities and mobile home parks. And I managed those for them. Again, not knowing exactly what I was doing, but I needed to figure it out. And that's how I went through college, which then resulted in, oh no, now I'm a graduate. What do I do? And it was more or less the same thing. Um, I had some experience and I was able to put it on paper, which made me probably look like I had better experience than I did. And I landed my first regional position with a real company. Because remember, up to this point, I'm just working for people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, right. Ah, I love that. And so now you're out in Arizona, and that's where you went to school.
I
Are you
went
in
to Arizona
Tennessee?
State.
Are you in Tennessee now, or is that just what you had
I'm in
before?
Tennessee now. That is Tennessee back there. I My father was military, which I think, he was 30-year career Marine. So, I know how to make a bed and also some of the property management inspections and things, i- that was innate in me. I knew, what things needed to look like. Um, so some of his personality and attributes were beneficial to me in business. And then others would say, and my father was a world renowned long distance shooter, you know,
Hmm.
with guns. So my mom was a dancer. She'd been a cheerleader and a professional dancer and a teacher. So I had a little bit of each of them, but I didn't have the confidence. That took time and all. So, I took some natural abilities and experience and watched what other people did. I mean, that was the start. I didn't know necessarily what I was doing, but the business was interesting. I find it fun. It's never dull. You know this. It
No,
is
you right.
never dull, and it's always changing.
Mm. Yeah, that is for sure. And, as the founder and president of your own consulting firm, you've worked with various multifamily companies
Yeah.
over the years. And so tell us, what are some of the more impactful changes you've witnessed in the industry over the years?
Oh God, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I obviously lived through going from paper to technology. I am a huge advocate of technology and strategically did make the decision to go to a .com and lead it because I wanted to learn more about technology. So I had my own, product department and all that forced me to learn that. So that was huge when that went on. That strike me, one being we're way more people oriented than we used to be, even though we said we were in the past. I really believe that most companies get that if we don't focus on our people, and I'm talking internal first, but if we don't build our teams, put the right people in the right chessboard, spots in a sense, we can't be successful. So I think that we've really have worked in that area. Now, for me, that was something that I was doing almost from day one. And I think some of that was my education. I went to school in the Orient, and
Hmm.
they did for a semester only, but it was my best learning because everything was about quality of back then. Can't say it is, what it is today, but back then it was about gaining information from your frontline workers, that the most important people were the people that were actually doing the work, not those of us, back at corporate. So it impacted me in how I worked. And I think other companies were attracted to me because of that. They may not have understood what it meant for them as a company, the investment in their people. But now I believe that is forefront on companies.
Yeah. I want to go into that just a little bit more if
Okay.
we can, because I think parallel to what you're saying, when you were saying right people, right, on the chessboard, I say it all the time, right people, right seat, right? So
Yep.
it's so incredibly important, that people element. And so, why don't you tell me a little bit more about that? Like when you're going to work with a company and, they're saying whatever's wrong with it.
Yeah.
We're not getting the occupancy we want,
Yeah.
or, we're not meeting the ROI. How do you get them to look introspectively on maybe the people part as being where they need to do the work? How do you do that?
Well, a lot of times it's just I give them examples from my experience. It almost always is a people opportunity, almost always. You may have a technology opportunity, you might be antiquated, so there's other things, but it's definitely people. So I teach that it's all about building your foundation that's going to allow people to flourish. And my first opportunity was when I was president of ENS Ring, and they were wonderful. They wanted to be the employer of choice for all the right reasons. So it allowed me to do the things that I really believed in, and that was, again, you got to build up people foundation. So everything from how our org charts, are the job descriptions interesting, or do they just list out what you're going to do? Are they engaging? What about the benefits? How are we bonusing people? Do we include everybody? Just, I went through every single area to do with people training, and we had to build departments. We didn't have the right people in the right places. Some of the people were great, but we needed more if we were going to really support our teams. So it takes some pushing, but it's also a style. If you don't believe what I'm telling you, and if you don't want to explore this, then maybe I'm not the right person for you. But I will promise you, if you follow these things, your retention will be better, your um, your productivity will be better, your bottom line, your cash flow, everything gets better when you build the right team with the right tools.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of fact
Yeah. Oh, I
to me.
believe you. I believe you, Maria. Yeah. And so, just to stay on this topic for a moment, I think what you're really saying is you have to have a solid people plan.
Yeah.
And whether you're a leader in the company, at the mid-level or even in the C-suite, you've got to have a people plan that you're revisiting, that you're looking at, that you're tweaking, that you're paying attention to as you're trying to support a company. I think that's what you're saying. Yes, that's part of it.
Oh, no, it's absolutely. And understanding what your competition is. I've been,
That's
when
good.
I was with Kettler was just starting to do our high rise and our luxury line. We were more affordable back then. And it's reinvented itself over the years. But we were competing against all the REITs, all the big boys were back there. And we were, a regional company competing against nationals. But what we did better than them was reinventing us. And we were able to attract some of the best and brightest talent, that was in the DC market. And my approach was, I'm going to find who I think are the best. I'm going to call them up, invite them to lunch, and make them a job offer. That's how I found most of my people. that came onto the teams, and, they've all had amazing careers. They were right. And they wanted to have ownership in making a difference and building an amazing company.
Well, and I'm sure that our listeners will perk up because this is a big deal in our industry and the world right now.
Yeah.
The ability to find really great talent and retain them. We talk about it all the time. And so do you think the methodologies have changed much with how you approach that, or how we should be approaching it out in multifamily when we're looking to recruit the best? What do you see anything different happening, or what can we do to really
It's
get better
it's
at that?
funny, not to talk about me, but I'm doing my live webinars are on the employee life cycle. And I call it's the romance, it's dating. Don't look at it the way we've been doing it. What I don't like about how we get people is I think we've gone too far in automation and canned letters, and there's no personalization. I've never fit the box. You probably can gather that with me. It's hard to, you can't keep me in the box, which is not always good for, some owners. They aren't as progressive, but I believe you've got to be different. You've got to know what you're offering. You've got to stand behind it, and you need to make that difference. So I'm not, when it comes to team members, I'm not about, looking at all the resumes and things. I'm about, going out there and finding the best and the brightest. I love to shop my comps. I'm a thief. I'm going to steal you if you come across good, but I'm also going to romance you, so, it's too late to wait for the swag, to be on their desk. I'm going to send it with, some of it with my job offer. I'm going to have my team, reach out. Everybody's going to send a note. We're going to send a card. We're going to do a snail mail so the family sees it. We're going to do a lot of things that companies say they're going to do, but then they end up resting on their laurels and their automation from their HR system. But if you want to win people over, you got to do something different. And a lot of companies have all these pieces. They're just doing it the same way for everyone, and the same thing doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah,
That's great advice.
I love that. We could stay on this particular topic probably for the entire show, and that just means we're going to have her back, Paul, because we can have like a whole part to this, part two. So yeah, so let's turn angles a little bit and talk about your reputation as the turnaround queen. So that's what you're known as. Can you share a specific instance where you successfully turned around a struggling multifamily property or team? Can you share with us?
I can tell you about a company. Wasn't necessarily the best fit for me long term, but the CEO and chairman of the company will still tell you that what Maria did with the teams, they still use that approach and that strategy. So what I do is, I'm a people person. I want to figure out how it needs to be, to sit. And I like to go through organizationally and see, what do we need? What bandwidth do we need? Do we have the right people in the right seats? So sometimes it's moving those boxes around. Sometimes it's eliminating them, making everything flat. It really depends on the nature of the company. But he has told me, and I still see a lot of the people that needed to have a seat on that team are still there. And the organizational structure is still the same. And I think that that's one of the things that I bring to companies is once we, get through, and I did not have full control of that company. I was a cog in the wheel, I was the head of property management, but not the company. So my impact, was more on property management, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the chessboard. I like figuring out the chessboard. And I would have to say that at most companies, I do that almost over and over again. I start always on the people side of the equation. I have another example, which didn't go as well, was, when they were almost untouchable. I thought I would be able to do what I needed to do, but, they kept pulling it. back and they were antiquated on technology and training, but they didn't have the right systems or some of the right people in place. And they thought they wanted to move forward and then they pull back. That's really difficult. It's hard to get everybody following you, if you can't have the carrot, which means you've thought about what is going to make this team move, what motivates them, but then also have the support that, gang, we're changing software, we're adding, technology, get on board. You can't, have 5 people in a company resist it and, your ownership go, ooh, no, let's keep on the path.
Yeah. What do they call those? Sacred cows? Is that what they call
Oh, yeah, sacred cows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I think they call them a few other things now, but yeah,
Well, I'm sure there's lots of words, but
yes.
yes, part of it's the naysayers. You're either going to move them. I love, the thought about, you're either going to move people up, and not everybody needs to be in your top 10% of the company. I love those people though. You need your people that are going to come to work every day, do what they're expected to do. But then if you've got a 10% at the bottom that aren't, if you can't manage them up, you do have to manage them out. And that's not because I'm a mean person, but whenever you have others pulling the rest of the team down, you're doing a disservice to the majority of your employees. And people don't always understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're talking about that. And it really goes into the next, question. As a leadership coach, and you're dealing with the challenges in multifamily and what those challenges are that professionals today are facing, how do you guide them towards growth and improvement and really lift them up like you were talking about?
We're going to take a very quick pause in this episode of Decoding Multifamily to talk a little bit about our sponsor of this episode, AppWork. Best known for exceptional maintenance workflow management, AppWork offers so much more. Optimize operations with its advanced business intelligence that turns data into strategy. Simplify your operations with AppWork's intuitive platform. Service team members love the gamification of maintenance workflows and leaderboards, making everyday tasks a competition to be number one. From project management to team communication, AppWork has you covered. Visit appworkco.com today.
If it's different strategy, different people, if you're working with, the top executive level, I have one approach. If I'm working, with somebody that's managing a department, I may have a different approach. So what I'm doing right now is working with, kind of the leadership team. And a lot of it is just conversations. Tell me how the week was. Did you have any, tell me what you are doing. And then we work, a lot of it is on communication and being able to pick up on the body cues and the things that people are saying. A lot of people, myself included, I was always a talker and a teller because I'm quicker at doing things and I love to problem solve. But if you have that ability, it could be detrimental to your team. So we talk about those behaviors of which ones we need to elevate, which usually turns out to be, you've got to ask more questions. You do not want to solve for them. You want to ask them, what would you do to solve that? So some of it's just retooling how they think and connecting with most leaders, at least the ones I'm working with, is connecting more heart, brain and heart
Yes.
alignment. Sometimes you'll get one that's too hard and needs to, learn other skills. So it really depends on their skill set. And from a leadership, top leaders, many times it's trying to get across to them that they don't need to know everything. You do not need to be an expert at everything. You can be a great generalist, but your communication, your approachability, your likability, there's other things. And, a lot of our leaders of the companies nowadays, some are way too left brained. But now we have a whole slew of right brained leaders, new to the jobs, that I would be telling you need to sit back for 90 days and not make a decision, because you've got to understand what your team wants, what they need. So some of it is, again, you're not always solving. You need to let them solve. So I love it. And I've had so much coaching with me. I'm not, I wasn't born, with a lot of the ability to do what we do. I had a lot of companies invest in me. So I was fortunate that I grew up, with companies, sending me for training, coaching.
Yeah.
I did Toastmasters. I mean, you name it. I was made.
Yeah, and I love that too, because that really is it's almost a gift for people out there, that emerging leader section is
Mhm.
what I call them. To be asking for training and to be, pushing that with their lead. And you're right, there's a lot of these skills that you can learn.
Yeah.
Um, I have a favorite question that I love to ask people, and then I want to ask you what your favorite question is.
Okay.
So it's a kind of a two-parter. I always ask people, what's the most important thing we should be talking about today? And then at the end, I always ask, what's the one thing that we should have talked about, what we didn't?
Hmm.
And I find that those are really good questions to dig in and, make sure that we have lifted all the rocks, because sometimes it's a little bit superficial, right? When you're coaching. What do you have any favorite questions that you like to ask people to get them to really open up so that you can help them?
I typically want to know what they hate about their job. I go right for the juggler. Tell me what
Nice.
you don't like. You Tell me what you wish you didn't have. Tell me something that you have to do, a requirement of the job that you think is ridiculous that we should stop doing now. I mean, I want them to talk to me. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear all the sugar coated
Yeah.
things. I want to know, what does it feel like? What do you think about when you leave your job? Are you relieved? Are you happy to go to work? Give me, let's get the guts out and talk about it. Because if not, we're all trained to say certain things,
Hmm.
especially as you've climbed the corporate ladder. Most of us have had communication classes. We know what to say and not to say. So I could be a perfect interview candidate and answer everything the way I think you want me to answer it. Or I can be me and, give you the real deal, which you're getting. So again, I could sell you whatever you want me to, sell you, but I want to know what's really making them tick, and, what's causing their pulse to go, ooh, ooh,
It's
to
great.
drop. I'm a fixer. I'm a true, I want to figure it out.
Yeah. I love that. Paul, I think you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a question. We've got about 10 minutes left, but I
Okay.
wanted to ask you, Maria, I mean, your career is inspiring as far as what you've done, how you started, where you
Mhm.
got to in the industry, running major companies and so forth. Looking back on it now, what would you say is the most the accomplishment in your career that you're the proudest of? What would you, if someone had to say, sum it up with one item that you've achieved, what would it be?
That is really a tough one, but I would have to say crossing over from being an operator, being in property management, to taking over a .com that was in a turnaround situation, stock
Mhm.
diving, brand, no goodwill around the brand. That was probably the most difficult transformation for me personally, to step into something that I mean, I step into things all the time I don't know, because I like to learn, but this was the most drastic. And being a national leader of a supplier, you have a lot more visibility than you do when you're running a company. Everybody's looking at you, everybody's taking shots at you. You're you're honing different skills. I ran a product team, it was national marketing, national sales team, very different than, um, property management. So I don't know if you know this, but fortunately or unfortunately, I did 3 national brand changes in a 2-year period with that company.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is not an easy task. I went from Home Store to RentNet, which is why I went there because I love the old RentNet brand, to move.com. And that is difficult to do national brand changes at all, but to do 3 of them while you're trying to gain back your clientele in 2 years, it wasn't a good. I personally didn't think we should do it. I eventually let everybody know that and dismiss myself, because it was going in a different direction than what I believe. Because I'm a property manager at heart, and I want to deliver results, to that clientele, to that population, to multifamily. And, we were dealing with the gray side a little bit, a little bit too much. Um, Home sales and things, because we own realtor.com.
Right.
So that was probably the most challenging, but also the most rewarding, because I don't think you can find very many presidents of companies that have had to do something like that.
Yeah, that is a challenge
It
that
was.
you have to deal with. Go ahead, Suzanne. I know you've got some other questions.
I do. And I'm just in awe of your trajectory from the time that you started, to follow up a little bit with Paul's question. And it always fascinates me, the different turns in one's career, and, the ebbs and flows, the ups and the downs that you travel, and where you end up, or where you are now, because it's not really where you end up. But if you were going to give advice about to an emerging leader out
Mhm.
there who really wants to build a career in property management, lead their own team, maybe go into coaching at some point, or just continue to prosper in our industry, what piece of advice would you give them based on what you've done in your career?
Well, for me, it was about continual learning. I did conventional, I did nonprofit, I did military, I've done student, I've done senior. But this is me. I wanted to understand it all, see where things could be leveraged. Could you run a company that was multifaceted? How do you do that? One brand, more brands. So I would say, if you want to have a progressive career, you need to take on the tough stuff. As a regional, I had the most difficult portfolios always. It was just, Maria can do it. Maria can do it. And Maria did it. I liked it. I don't see failure as an option, but I see, gracefulness, as you navigate. So I would say, you know, be open to feedback, ask for it, continually learn. Now, something that I did that worked and then it turned out that it didn't work is that a lot of people build their careers in one place, which is great if that works for you, but your learning abilities are different, when you're in one. Back when I was, building my career, they would tell me things like, 5 years or so at one company, and if you're blocked or capped, you may need to move so that you could have new skills, new titles. I made the mistake, though, of I became such a problem solver, fixer, that you can also work your way out, because people don't think, for some reason they think that if you can fix everything, you can't keep it stable, which, like, really? Yes, we can. But, that would be, watch your timing. Timing is everything in our business, timing and learning, and grow your network.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Really, really great advice, and impactful. And I don't think that it has really changed, right? You've followed those rules since the get-go, and look what it's done for your career, which is so admirable. Yeah.
It was fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. What keeps you, and this is I don't know how much time we have left, Paul, but I want to ask this question about how you keep yourself motivated. Not that I don't think you ever have to worry about that, but I think we all have that internal check where we're like, okay, what keeps me tied to this? What makes me passionate? And you in particular are really passionate about mentoring others, mentoring, speaking, making an impact on people's lives. What keeps you motivated to do that?
Because I really believe that I've been given so many gifts. I've just got goosebumps everywhere. There's been people that helped me, believed in me, supported me, and I've been a fortunate one that I've been able to do a lot of different things, live in a lot of interesting places. I want to give it back. I'm a big believer that just like if in your closet, you need to purge, you've got to give away. You can't keep everything. So you've got to give away, in a sense, freely what you have. And I think for me, the thing that I have is experience, experience and stories and, this is what happened when I did that. I hit the wall. And I want to get back. I want to help others. That's what motivates me. Now, the other side of that coin, I started this during COVID and I had worked on my own once before I started to go out there by myself right after the .com. And what I found is that I was having trouble motivating myself back then, without doing it for someone else. It was hard. And the rejection, it's like, oh my God, they don't like me. I'm a has-been, things that my head can do. I don't allow it. It's like no negatives, no, all positive self-talk, positive motivation. If I hit one, I again, what can I do to be more of service to others? And I keep going. I just have to do that. It's or if not, I'm going to sit out here in Tennessee with my chickens and I'm getting a pig is coming next week and, ride around on a John Deere. That's definitely, it's fun, but it's not what I want to, do. I want to help other people, whether it's, I work with startups, I work with a lot of people, but it's not always easy to get in, and I'm not always the best at asking. So I'm still working on, do you know anybody that could benefit from my services? Is there anything? I've even volunteered with some of the local groups and I've got nothing. I'm like, what the heck? Here I am, free and wanting to help, and you don't want it. And I can't take it personally. It's an interesting road, to market yourself, but I believe I'm pretty close to an expert marketer. I know what to do. It's just doing it for yourself is very different than doing it when you're at the helm of a company.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
I've heard a lot of people say that, especially that have, done like marketing, sat in that seat for larger companies, and then they go solo and they're like, this is weird me talking about myself like this, or, it just feels awkward. And
It is. It's weird, but you're now the product. You're the product that you're marketing.
Yeah.
And, it really does take you back almost to the first time you entered in a property management door and you don't know anything. So I just remind myself that I'm teachable. This is new. You're learning something. So I'm always, I'm really good, like I said, from the technology standpoint. What I need to do is talk to more people, pick up the phone. That 1,000-pound phone that you have in leasing is still a 1,000-pound phone for me sometimes. That one hasn't gone away. So I'm going to force it. It's going to get down to 10 pounds.
So we've really kind of come to the end of the time, but we always want to ask our guests if someone wants to reach out to you to talk to you about maybe working with them or whatever, how can they do that? What's the best way for someone to reach you?
Well, I carry a cell phone, so you can text or call me. I'm extremely responsive. My phone number, get a pen out, is 805-422-4722. It's still a California number. And you can email me if you can spell my last name. Maria at Maria Pietroforte. And people are like, what?
But you're also very active on LinkedIn. They can try.
Oh yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always doing lives and putting things out. So, follow me or connect with me. I'm very friendly and I talk to just about anybody. If somebody writes me, I'm the one. This is one last thing. As a leader of the company, I always interacted with the recruiters, the suppliers, anybody that was going to write me. I tried not to just push off, but to give some type of a response. They, may just be send me your proposal, but it's important to respect everybody in the industry.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. I agree with Suzanne. I think we need to have you back again because there's so much you can add. But it's great to see you again. I hope to see you soon at one of the conferences coming up. And
You will.
and
I'm sure.
Anyway, just to remind our viewers that Decoding Multifamily is part of the Multifamily Media Network. You can go to multifamilymedianetwork.com, subscribe to the weekly newsletter that will give you all the information about all the different podcasts on our network that have dropped in the last week, as well as great blogs from our podcast hosts. Go to multifamilymedianetwork.com. But thanks again to everybody. We will be back again soon with our next episode. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Decoding Multifamily video podcast, and please tune in to future episodes. If you would like to subscribe to our weekly newsletter or discuss being a podcast guest on Decoding Multifamily, please go to multifamilymedianetwork.com. Thank you for watching Decoding Multifamily.